All right, here we go, everybody. Welcome to Happy Corrupt and Wargaming. There are some exceptionally cool things that are going down that we got to go over today. As most of you know, we have LVO, the Las Vegas Open, which is going to be an incredible tournament. It is coming up, and it is this weekend. It will be the largest tournament of the year. These guys are expecting in excess of 1,000 participants. For me, it's hard to even fathom that kind of sheer amount of like participation. Could you imagine going to a tournament that has 1,000 participants in it? It sounds freaking bananas. And honestly, I'm very jealous I'm not there. I'm actually almost 100% sure that next year I will make sure that my schedule is set so that I will be attending. But there are some exceptionally important things that have changed for this year, which actually make me really excited for what's coming up in the future. So if you guys are excited about LVO content, if you want to know these rules, because the rules are so different this year, and there's a massive FAQ that we have to go through in depth so that everyone can really understand exactly what's happening. So go and hit the like button down there if you're excited about going through this FAQ. Make sure you pay attention, because if you're playing, you got to know these things, and I got to be honest with you. You got to read through this FAQ, or you might get caught out by some stuff you're not ready for. All right, so let's take a look at some of the big content here. All right, so we're going to be taking a look-see through this little FAQ. I've got it basically all downloaded up here. So I'm going to go through a bunch of these. Some of these are repeat, so I'm going to end up skipping them. If you guys have any questions, if you need clarifications, just type. You know, I'm here for you. I'm here to make sure that everyone is ready to rock and roll and is ready to succeed in the game of Warhammer 40,000. The biggest #1 change, guys, and this is really exciting to me personally, is that LVO seems to have decided that they are going to hybridize their general FAQ. So they seem to be adopting a lot of the principles from the WTC. For those of you who don't know what that is the World Teams Championships. That's the tournament that it's the biggest team tournament every single year, and it's freaking awesome. Where you have like last year, I think we had 36 countries had sent their teams of 8 best players there to compete for the World Championships. And I think WTC is probably the best way to play Warhammer, although there are a few differences that some of you might not really be aware of. Well, the LVO FAQ includes a lot of the rule set for the WTC this year. And that's really exciting to me because we're getting unified rules. One thing that a lot of people might not realize is that if you're used to playing WTC, you might actually not know how to play Warhammer in America, where they use different rule sets. Or in America, if you're used to playing on GW open terrain or player place terrain, you might have no idea how to interact on the table if you go to Europe and play on the WTC terrain. So it's really cool that we're starting to get unified rules. So let's start walking through some of these. There's a good bit of these, and some of them can be a little bit confusing. And I'm going to skip the repeats because they'll skip any of the repeats they have. This is actually a living document that the ITC puts out, and they don't really post it anywhere. So it's actually pretty cool that we got it, so that we can actually go through everything in here. So one of the big first things, let me see if I can like highlight this. There we go. One of the big first questions is redeploys. Will they all be in step 8 as they're considered pre-game abilities, thus after the first turn roll-off, or before that? And the answer for them is going to be redeploys is before the roll to go first. So if you have a redeploy ability, it's before the roll to go first. There are certain exceptions to this, like the Phobos Captain, where the rule specifically says it happens after the roll for the first turn. It's actually a pretty obvious answer, and it's something that people probably should have recognized. In the chat, we got Mr. Pizza Guardian. Mr. Pizza Guardian, for you guys who don't know, is a legend in and of himself. He is one of our fearless leaders of the WTC. I bet he's got to be pretty proud of the fact that they're seeing LVO adopt their rule sets. Thanks for hopping into the chat, man. Awesome to see you. So let's look at this one. They need clarifications for eligibility to shoot for the secondary cleanse. Now, this is actually something that really confuses a lot of people, so maybe we'll just take 2 seconds to go through this. They want to know, is there eligibility to shoot if you don't have a weapon? Yes, you're still eligible to shoot. However, you cannot shoot with a pistol if you don't have a pistol. So if you're engaged in melee and you don't have a pistol, or you're not a vehicle, you are not eligible to shoot any longer. One quick thing about cleanse, which actually does screw people up a lot, is you can, let's say we're on the ritual and you want to spawn a new objective. And this is something that you really need to understand about this game. Well, if you want to spawn a new objective on the ritual, a lot of people tend to think that cleanse is a great secondary to take. The problem with that is that if you take the secondary cleanse, you can start it and you don't have to be on the objective. And when the objective is spawned, specifically in the ritual, however, is at the end of the turn. It's not at the end of a phase. So you never have an opportunity to actually control the objective, meaning you still cannot score a cleanse on the objective that you spawn. And that's not exactly what this question was aimed at, but since they're talking about cleanse, I figured I'd throw that in for all of you legends who are here turning up. If you have an ability that generates additional CP in your turn, can you get CP provided by discarding a tactical objective? No per core rules, unless your ability specifically allows you to ignore the core rules. Now, there are a few situations where they are allowing for the core rules, where they are allowing for abilities to override core rules. So your Imperial Knights and your Votann players, there's unique abilities to generate extra CP. Votann being if they kill a unit with Judgment tokens, or Imperial Knights if they kill a Warlord. That does override core rules and is not included in the once per round generation of CP. This is actually a kind of an interesting one right here. So we have when a vehicle with firing deck X, X meaning the amount of the firing deck, whether it's 2 or 12, ability fires a hazardous weapon and dies because of it, does the unit disembarking have the ability to shoot as the vehicle had made the previous attacks? And the answer is yes. Now this does open us up to a really interesting interaction with some of the units. Let's say, for example, let's say we're playing orcs and you have a truck that's full of flash kits and Badruck, and you shoot all the flash kits and then you shoot Badruck and you overcharge it and that kills the truck. All the flash kits and Badruck then disembark from the truck. You then get another round of shooting with flash kits and Badruck. I had never even considered this interaction until I had read this FAQ, so it's actually really good that they put that in there because that is a pretty big answer. Oh, we got Tom Blackburn in the chat. Hey, buddy, how's it going? Oh no, sorry, buddy. This is not the data slate. This is the FAQ for LVO. The data slate. We don't know if it's coming this week or if it's coming next week. I will 100% be going through that. I promise you. There's gonna be a lot of really interesting things involved in that, though. All right, so guys, this is the big change. So this one, if you get nothing else from this video, if you're attending LVO or your tournament circuit that you play in uses the LVO FAQ, this is the one that you need to understand. And as a matter of fact, I might actually need to load up TTS to kind of show you guys exactly how this works. So basically, here's the question. When an infantry unit charges, will they be able to be inside the walls, or will the unit have to be able to fully make it through? Now, this is something that a lot of people in Europe who play under WTC rule sets are very familiar with. There is a exception in the rules because the rule says that you can never start or end a movement inside of a wall. There is an exception under a WTC rule set, which will allow units to be able to stand inside of walls on the charge, assuming it's an infantry or a beast, in order to make charges possible. And the intention of it is to make sure that there is still interactivity in the game. And you can't just stand 1.1 inches behind a wall and make it impossible for you to be charged. Now, this can be very complex. And if you're playing at LVO, you really need to make sure that you always call a judge when this situation arises. As a matter of fact, while I'm talking here, I'm actually going to load up my TTS so that I can actually show you guys what this actually looks like on the tabletop. So I'll just talk about it while TTS is loading here. So essentially, the way this goes is, let's say I have a unit of intercessors, and they are stacked behind a wall. Because, you know, that happens. People are behind walls. And they are 1.1 inches away. And you're charging with a 40 millimeter base, say Exalted 8-bound. And it is an 11-inch charge, but you can't physically make the charge because there is a wall in the way. Well, what this ruling will allow for is for you to actually stand in the wall and make your attacks. Now, there are a few caveats with this. One caveat is this. The units that are in the wall can get into engagement range, but they don't count as being base to base to the enemy unit. So you only get to fight in the 1 rank. You will not get to fight in 2 ranks. Make sure you understand that you only get to fight in 1 rank. This is something that people confuse all of the freaking time. The other caveat is that after attacks are done, you have to put yourself in a legal position, meaning either you pile in to get into a legal position or you have to consolidate out of the wall to be legal. This might mean that you take yourself out of engagement range in certain situations. So I've got my TTS view loaded up. I'm going to switch to that right now so that I can really demonstrate this for you guys in live time so that you understand the way this works, because it can be very tricky. All right, so here is my TTS. Let me load up some terrain. And if you guys need more help with this, make sure that you hop into the Discord, because we go over stuff like this in the Discord all of the freaking time. So let me just go ahead and load this up. I'm going to load in, here, let's just go ahead and load in some Death Watch, some Marines, and then I'm also going to go ahead and load in some Orcs so I can just kind of, because I have them lined up, so I can kind of make this demonstration for you guys. All right, and what we'll do is I'm going to clear this out. Let's turn the state here. I'm going to just grab some infantry soldiers. We'll call it these infiltrators. All right, and let's say that these infiltrators are going to be standing right here in this ruin. And if you're used to playing in America, what you typically might do is you might put them down here and just make sure that they are 1.1 inches away from this wall to make charging them essentially impossible. Well, under WTC rules, and now under the new and improved rules for the LVO, this won't work anymore. So let's say that I have this unit of knobs, and they have a, what is it, a 10-inch charge. Well, they can't charge here because they wouldn't be able to fit their whole base, because we're just going to make sure that it's impossible to fit their whole base. So it would initially make this an impossible charge. Because if you can see, I'll be standing on top of the base. Here, we'll make this even more right there. So it's going to be impossible to actually make this charge. Oh no, what's going on? Sorry, TTS wiling out on me. So this would, under old rules, have been an illegal charge. However, under WTC ruling and now LVO ruling, if I roll that 10-inch charge, I can move him as far as I can, and I can just stand inside of the wall. So if you see here, you can see my claw is standing in the middle of the wall, or my base has to be in the middle of the wall, so that I can legally complete this charge. This will allow me to go ahead and charge everything as much as possible to also make this possible. And I can actually have my models standing in the wall to complete the legal charge. Now, there are a few caveats here, okay? This right here, let's say that this knob is base to base to the guy who's in the wall. He does not count as engagement. So only the models that are actually in engagement count as engagement. He does not count as base to base with a unit that's base to base. All right, so you can't game that. Now, there is a trick. And if any of you is attending LVO, you can win just because I'm going to teach you this right now. So let me teach you this amazing trick that will blow your freaking mind, and it will piss your opponents off to no end. I mean, it shouldn't actually piss them off because you should tell them what you're doing so they know what's happening. But, like, I say that because it's funny. So what I recommend doing is I recommend making your charges like this. Leave enough space for exactly one model to be able to get actually legally in engagement range. When you do that, what ends up happening is, since the models can legally, technically finish their charge, it's impossible for them to stand in the middle of the wall. So now what happens is this successful charge roll ends up being here, and all your dudes won't get to fight. So at this point, now you only get to hit with one knob because the others cannot stand in the middle since it was a possible legal charge. So once again, real fast, and then we'll get back to all the other rules because this is just the most complicated one. If it's impossible for them to legally finish the charge without being in the wall, they can end up in the wall. Okay? And then they get a bunch of guys in here, and they can do what knobs do and just slaughter you. However, if it is legal for them to finish the charge, you cannot stand in the wall, meaning you can limit your enemy to only hitting with one model. So it's a little bit of a game how you position your models here now. It's not safe just being 1.1 because a lot of times if you're 1.1 and you make it kind of like an impossible charge, they're going to get everything in there and they're going to wipe you. So be really, really cautious. Now let's say, just for the last part of clarification on this, that we do make this charge and our knobs magically whiff. They won't, but let's say they magically whiff. At the end of the turn, this does have to legally come back here so that they're legally standing in an actual legal position, which can take them out of engagement range. Now, I always recommend you call the TO when you're doing this at the tournament because this will get sticky real fast and you and your opponents will have arguments. Just call a TO to make sure that they're at the table while you're doing it to make sure everything is above board and you'll be all good. So this is how it works. If you guys have any more questions about it, hop into the Discord and we can go through it a little bit more. I'm going to go back to the other view where we can start going through this all through this awesome FAQ a little bit more. All right, so we're back to it. Let me just check chat for a second. Oh, cool. So there were a few things in there. People were talking about how they were doing pre-battle abilities wrong, but yeah, I saw that they fixed the WAD mirror roll. I saw that too. That was really exciting. Oh, Blake Davis has a question. He wants to know, so how do you get models within the wall on the physical table? Well, you can either just pick up the ruin and place them there, Or like I said, you call the TO, and you guys just will have to figure out the measurement of who should be within. So like I said, don't do this without a judge present. Okay, so let's move on. Does the unit inside the transport count as part of the unit? I.e., can the unit use stratagem for free? No, that's no different. That's just people asking stupid questions, so they answered them very succinctly and correctly. If I was to perform the cleanse secondary, for example, in my shooting phase, I have a unit shoot. No, okay, that's also stupid. People asking bad questions. Can a unit get out of a transport after arrives from reserves? The answer is no. So this is the WCW ruling, which is really interesting that they're having a hybrid of the WCW and the WTC FAQs. So no, they're saying you cannot get out of a transport arriving from reserves. So sorry guys, there's not going to be any land raider reserves 5-inch charges or 6-inch charges, even though I think that it should. It is rules is written the way it should go. But that's okay. That's their ruling, so that's how we'll play at LVO. Is arriving from reserves or strategic reserves count as having made a normal move for triggering rules that trigger off making a normal move? Now, this is very controversial. I don't agree with it, but it doesn't matter because this is for the tournament specifically, and you guys need to know how to do this at the tournament, okay? So, arriving from deep strike, strat reserves, whatever, will not count as making a normal move. So, let's say you want to throw squig bombs at the end of a normal move. You cannot do it here. Also, you don't destroy GSC tokens. That's a problem. I don't really. I think this is a bad ruling, but it is the ruling. So be aware that you will not be able to destroy GSC tokens by arriving from deep striking within 9 inches of them. That's a little spicy. All right. Can a vehicle monster that is within engagement range of an enemy unit be selected for the fire Overwatch stratagem, courtesy of Big Guns Never Tire? The answer is no. Now, this is actually a fairly obvious no if you read the rules, but I understand why it can be a little bit confusing. So let's just go through this. Big Guns Never Tire, when you read the core rules, is only active during the shooting phase. It's not active during the Overwatch phase, so you can't use it then. Same thing with pistols, by the way. All right. Let's look at the next one. Using rules such as shoot and fade on a Phobos Lieutenant or a winged swarm for gargoyles allows you to perform an additional move in the shooting phase after you shoot. I call that the shoot and the scoot. Because this move happens in the shooting phase and not in the movement phase, can you do this after entering the field via reserves? The answer is yes. And the reason for that is logical. It's just because it happens in the shooting phase after you shoot. The way you arrive should have no bearing on that. Can parts of a model hang off the edge of a board? The answer is no. You can never hang off the edge of a board unless you are an aircraft. That is the exception to the rule. And the aircraft is for deploying units only. Okay. Is plunging fire 6 inches up or on the second floor? It's per the core rules, so 6 inches above the ground floor. So actually, one thing I recommend all of you do when you're getting ready to play, make sure you measure your terrain, because every table will have a different terrain set. I know the terrain's supposed to be a million times better than it was last year, but make sure you actually physically measure it, because on some of the floors you might think that it's 6 inches, but it's actually 5.5, which means you will not get plunging fire from it. So before you make your plan, every time you get to a new table, measure that terrain to make sure that you are getting your plunging fire rule if your plan is to get the plunging fire rule. Okay. If a transport with assault ramp or similar ability is destroyed in Overwatch after it moves, can the unit embarked within still charge? The answer for them is no. I'm not entirely sure why the answer is no, but the answer is no. All right. Hey, my wife's home. Hello, wife. If a unit is already within range of an objective marker, can it consolidate to get more models within range of the objective marker, or if all models are already... Yes, okay, so I'm going to show this on TTS so you guys can understand, because this is also one that I've found people can get easily confused by. So let me just jump over there to demonstrate this for everybody. Okay, cool. So let's spawn some objectives. Oops, click the wrong button. Forgive me. All right, so hammer and anvil, okay? Basically the same scenario or a similar scenario. Let's say that we have these infiltrators and they're ready to face down some knobs, which is a horrible, horrible plan. And the knobs all charge in and they're all like, boom, I'm a knob and I'm going to hit you with my big power claw. Pew, 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 crump, wah. And they will obviously just, kill all the infiltrators because knobs kill things. That's what they do. So all the infiltrators go, pew, pew, I'm dead, I'm dead. Well, at the end of this, they can now make a consolidation movement. So what the LVO has ruled is that even though I'm touching this objective marker, I'm already touching the objective marker, I can still make my consolidation move to the other side of it as long as I'm still touching it. This is actually a really big deal because this, if you see, gets me an extra 3 inches of movement. It gets me up the board. So it's kind of a funny thing. Like GW made all these new rules for pile and consolidate to stop the gaming of combat movement, and we still have it. We just have to be a little more crafty with it. But anyway, that's what they mean by that. So yes, you can consolidate like that. And consolidation, by the way, is on a model by model basis. So don't get tricked in thinking that it's your entire unit has to do the consolidation. It's a model by model basis. All right, let me go back to my FAQ view. Here we are. We're back to the FAQ. All right. All right. What's this question? How are 0 CP abilities going to be ruled in the case of stratagems which target an enemy unit, such as surprise assault, irresistible will, and many others? Rules written data slate. Okay, that's just saying that it's that's just they're to update. They're just talking about the question about where you can use your free stratagems. It's only on battle tactics, etc. Okay. Now this question is a good one. So there's a little bit of controversy about whether or not this is correct. Can you use the command reroll stratagem on a unit using your free stratagems? And the answer, rules as written, is kind of no, but it's also yes. Because technically, when you use the command reroll stratagem, you're targeting the roll, not the unit. So is this unit being targeted the stratagem? It's controversial. In the Happy Crumping Wargaming TTS tournament, which is happening a few days after the data slate, so jump into the members only section so you can be part of it. It's going to be awesome. Shameless plug. We will rule that you can do it, and LVO agrees. So they are saying that yes, you can target your unit with a command reroll stratagem for free as one of your free abilities, stratagem use abilities. So be aware of that because not everyone will allow you to do that. All right, do units that ignore this, I'm so happy to see this, guys. This makes me so freaking pleased. If this part makes you pleased, type it down in the chat because this makes me pleased. Do units that ignore modifiers to their characteristics, like the Silent King, Mortarion, and Trajan, also ignore modifiers that modify characteristics of their attack, like the character doesn't have damage? The answer is yes. So, LVO, they're in this weird hybrid where they adopted half of the WCW, or the World Champion, for in ATL this year. They adopted half of it, but not all of it. So this was a really stupid ruling that the WCW had, and I'm very, very happy to see that LVO has adopted this. Can you hear me? Can I get an amen? Oh my gosh. Americasaurus Rex is so happy right now. He's so pleased. Freedom reigns. And if you ignore modifiers, you actually ignore modifiers. Okay, so Mortarion, he's going to cleave through the Incarn. Trajan's going to cleave through these people who have damage. It's still happening. Thank you. That is the way the rules are written. That's the way it should be done. Thank you, LVO. Great ruling. Really proud of you on that one. Okay. Can redeploys be deployed in no man's land using infiltrator rule? Actually, this is a great question. Infiltrators say it could be used during deployment, and redeploys such as Phobos Captain do not occur during deployment. And the answer is no, they cannot. So what are they asking? Well, if I have a unit that's an infiltrator, and I use a redeploy ability, can I redeploy by using my infiltrate to also be in no man's land? The answer is no. So be aware of that. Some people think you can. That's actually really important to understand that. No, you cannot do that. This next question is basically just saying the WCW ruling was stupid, and yes, when you ignore modifiers, you do actually ignore modifiers. All right, multiple rules can trigger at the start of the first battle round before the first player turns, such as some redeploy abilities, scout moves, and World Eater's Blessings of Corn roll. Which order do these different rules go in? And there's a couple different answers here, and I'm going to give a little nuance to this, okay? First off, if they take place after the first turn has been determined, then the redeploy happens before the start of the first battle round, such as Neuronode. If two things take place at the same time, follow player priority, active player chooses order. Scouts are resolved with the player going first, resolving all the scouts moves first. Now, this is one that I think you guys need to ask TOs when you get to LVO, because there actually is a very obvious core ruling on this. And when you have abilities that happen pre-battle round, so maybe this doesn't apply exactly here, maybe we'll see it later on, but I didn't see it when I went through this earlier. So if you have abilities that happen pre-battle round, such as World Eater's Blessings of Corn roll, or the WA mechanism for Orcs, it is written in the rules. If both players have a pre-battle round ability, the way you determine who declares it first is you two roll a dice, and the winner of the roll-off decides who does their ability first, which makes for exceptionally interesting Orc mirror matches, which is why the 10th edition Orc mirror match is my favorite mirror match I've ever seen in my life. But that is the way it's resolved per curl rules. This answer is a little bit confusing, so I would make sure I clarify this with the TOs when you get to LVO so that you guys can be on the same page for that, because people do not understand but that is written in the core rules. It's actually very explicitly written, which, thank you, GW. That was actually good rule writing. I'm proud of you. Can a single model count their OC? This is actually another really good one. Holy crap, this is a great FAQ, talk to me. And therefore control multiple objectives. Yes, yes. So if you're one model and you're on multiple objectives, which is hard because you have to be very large, but let's say it's the ritual and these some of the objectives only have to be 6 inches apart. You have to be 9 inches apart from the spawn objective, but only 6 inches apart from other ones. It gets a little, whatever. Then yes, one model can count their full OC to both objectives. So if you have a battle wagon and he's on 2 objectives or within range of 2 objectives and his OC is 4 or 5, I can't really remember if it's 4 or 5, he will count his OC towards both. The battle wagon still sucks, but you could do that. I wish the battle wagon was great, but he's not, sadly. All right. Which of the following is true about repositioning? Okay. All right. So this is the question. Can units that go back up into like reserves or whatever, can they come back down on the battlefield in turn 1 when you go second? So this would apply to Grey Knights. This would apply to Death Watch. This would apply to Custodes for their Terminators. It's a fairly common ability. The answer is if you have the Deep Strike keyword or you don't go back into reserves, yes, you can come back down in turn 1. If you go back into strategic reserves and you do not have the Deep Strike keyword, you cannot come back down turn 1. As a matter of fact, you can't even be picked up at all. Okay? Got it? This question is going to be asked multiple times during this FAQ. So make sure that you just hammer that into your head. If you have the Deep Strike keyword and you have the ability to be picked up and come back down next turn, you can do it turn 1. If it's strat reserve that you go into, you cannot. Not sure why they made that distinction, but that's what it is. All right. After fighting, are you required to consolidate even if you don't want to? Consolidation is optional and on a model-by-model basis. We covered that. Then we have... so this is just asking, can the Calidus's, Polymorphine, Space Marine, Vanguard, Stratagem, Guerrilla Tactics allow a player going second to pick their models up in the first turn, coming back down in the first turn? The answer is yes, because they're coming back in doing Deep Strike. But you would have to have Deep Strike. Then, all right, good one. Some units' abilities include the ability to zero out a damage. So we got a question from Peter Dinglish. I just happened to see this. Sorry for interrupting myself, guys. So he says, but Scout's rule says that starting player does his first move first. Yes, that's not a pre-battle round ability. That's like, so Scouts is a little bit different. That's an active player order. Pre-battle round abilities would be things like the Wa or things like the Blessings of the Corn Roll, which take place every single battle round, right? Or potentially every single battle round. All right, good question though. All right, so this is going when we zero an attack. Can you zero it before the damage is allocated or after the damage is allocated? And the reason why they're asking it is, let's say that the Eldar hit with a Bright Lance or a Wraithguard hit you, and you want to blank the damage. Can you wait to see if they use a Fate dice to make it a 6 before you choose to blanket? The answer is no. You have to blanket before the damage is allocated. All right. Now, this is one that I really hate. I really don't like this ruling. I think it's bad, and I think it's really bad for the game, but it is what it is. Does fast rolling preclude any type of reroll? Rerolls, like from the Stratagem Command reroll or the Eldari Detachment Rule Unparalleled Foresight. It says, yes, you can fast roll and use rerolls. I think it's an awful choice because it allows people to have exceptional advantageous knowledge of the future. But, it is what it is. So in LVO, you can just use your rerolls and fast rolls. It's fine. This question is, will Infantry Beast be able to exist temporarily in walls during the fight phase? Yes. So this is what we just talked about and what I just demonstrated on TTS. You can stand in the middle of a wall if you have the Infantry or Beast keyword. Only the Infantry and Beast keywords, not other keywords. Remember, people still think that swarms can move through walls. They can't. Swarms are not able to do that anymore. Okay. Cool. Now, this one is very specific for LVO, so just bear with me for a second. They want some clarification on terrain rules. There are certain terrain rules at LVO that have the F donation. So basically, every piece of terrain has like an A, a B, or an F. It doesn't matter. If you're not going, this part doesn't matter to you. But if you are going, this is actually very important. So F ruins. Also, hold on. Let me just read through this so I don't stumble over my words for you. Okay, F ruins. In F ruins, they have closed windows on the first floor. Basically, that's what they're asking. They're asking to see if can if you're touching the F terrain, can I still see you? And the answer is if you can see through the second window, yes, but windows are closed on the first floor of the F denoted room. And so that's essentially what they're asking. All right. Okay, this is actually a great one. For monsters and vehicles such as hovering aircraft or speeders that significantly overhang their base and are very tall, can friendly models be moved underneath the overhanging part of the model? The answer is yes. You can actually put friendly models underneath them. And then the next obvious follow-up is yes, enemy models can move under the overhanging part of the model and can finish moves underneath them. Remember engagement range for 5 inches verticality, right? So if you're within 5 inches vertically, that is engagement. Okay, so the next part of it is you can't move within engagement range if they are more than 5 inches vertically from that part of the model. And remember, the verticality, the base is part of the model. This is a really big deal. So the base is part of the model. So if you are 5.5 inches up, or if you're 4.5 inches up, but because of the base, but the rest of you is way over 5 inches, well, the base is still within 5 inches and you can be engaged from the ground floor. So be very aware of your verticality of engagement. I'm gonna ignore that part. We already talked about it. Okay. All right. When measuring weapon ranges to and from vehicles that overhang their bases, are these measurements 3D taken from the closest part of the vehicle model, or are the weapon ranges 2D taken from the top-down footprint of the vehicle? Are aura ranges similarly measured in 2D or 3D? Aura and weapon ranges are measured per the core rules of the game, and this would be measurements are always from base or hull. Line of sight can be from any part of the model. Very simple. Can Miracle Fate Dice be used as part of rerolls? Yes, they can. Oh, look at that. We got a first-time LVOer, Wicked Joe. Congratulations, man. What army are you bringing? Type it down for us. I'm excited for you. Okay, so if transports arrives from strategic reserves on turn 2, can the unit inside get out and be within the opponent's deployment zone? No, they cannot. So the only vehicles that at LVO they're going to allow you to disembark when you arrive from Strat Reserve or from Deep Strike would be things like Drop Pod, where it's very specifically mentioned in the wordings. Okay, this is awesome. And for all of you who are watching this, you really need to understand this next part because this is gonna be in the Happy Carpet Wargaming TTS tournament in the members only section, which by the way you can access by joining my Ko-Fi, or you can access by becoming a YouTube member. Either way works. You can join either one, and we love you regardless of what you choose to do. But yeah, you can hop into the Discord there, and you'll be a part of it. So on the Sites of Power primary mission. The wording seems to indicate that as long as my character remains within range of an empowered objective, I will score 3 points for that objective even if I don't control it in subsequent turns. And the answer is yes. Sites of Power does not require you to control the objective to gain the points for having it empowered. So here's a great example, okay? Oh, you know what? Here, I'll just do this on TTS because that'll make it a lot easier for everyone. So let me just switch back to my TTS view. It's a good thing I loaded that up. Okay. Let me just grab Mr. Mazrog, okay? So Mr. Mazrog is on this objective and he's controlling it. So he's OC4, he controls the objective. It is now empowered. So if I hold it at the beginning of my next turn and Mazrog's the only model on it, then I will score 3 points for holding the objective and 3 points for having my character on the empowered objective. Now let's just say that my opponent moves his 5 infiltrators on there, and with their OC of 1 each, suddenly I no longer control the objective. However, Mazrog is still on an empowered objective. So in my turn, I don't score the 3 points for holding the objective, but I do score the 3 points for having a character model on the empowered objective. Got it? That's the way Sites of Power works, and a lot of people can get this one very easily confused, but that is the way it works. So hopefully this helps to clarify things for all of you beautiful, beautiful Gratzengits. We got a question from Patrick Robinson. He wants to know: is it going to be worth it to start the Eldari now, or will they be next to useless after the nerf? Honestly, man, start the army you freaking like. I'm gonna do another video on data slate predictions, maybe tomorrow or Wednesday. But it's like, dude, the game is so close to being perfectly balanced. They don't need to do much. Eldari, honestly, the Eldari rules need to change. Here's how they need to change the Eldari rules, okay? The Incarn's rules need to change. It shouldn't be able to charge after it does its teleport. There. Make that change, and honestly, that goes a long way to fixing Eldari. There are still a few issues with them, but that goes a long way towards it. Then if you want to fix Chaos Space Marines, you don't need to obliterate the army. All you need to do is you need to take Profane Zeal, the thing that gives 1 CP to reroll all hit and wound rolls, rid of the wound roll part of it. Make it only hit rolls. That is a huge portion of it. And then honestly, Forge Fiends, Chosen, and a Curse should go up by 10%. Leave the rest of the army basic alone. That'll be enough. All these really powerful armies don't need much. They need surgical strikes to make everything super balanced. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting out of the range of this particular video. But I will do a data slate video for you guys. I swear, I promise. All right. When this unit is wholly within ruins, is the unit to shoot out of windows, specifically windows with all sides, such as line of sight. Yes. All right, that's fine. Yes, you can see through windows, unless it has the F designation, which means you can't see through first floor windows. All right. All right, this is just kind of a rapid fire. Okay, just all this is asking is, do out of phase abilities work or not? The answer is no. Out of phase abilities don't work. So you cannot use big guns never tire in Overwatch. You cannot use pistols in Overwatch. Basically, all that question is asking. All right. And this one confuses people too, so this is good. If I shoot a las cannon, which is d6 plus 3 damage at a unit, and I can change the damage to 0, like a Rogel Dorn battle tank, using a Blade of Plague, does it change the damage to 0 or 0 plus 3? The answer is 0. The reason for this is that d6 plus 3 is the damage characteristic of the weapon. There is it's not an additive, all right? I know it looks like an additive because there's a plus sign, but it's not, because the damage will be d6 plus 3 damage. A melta would be an additive. So if I was a melta, if I was a d6 damage melta 2, the 2 would be an additive. So if I was shooting a Rogel Dorn battle tank and he used a Blade of Plating and I used a melta, and I say I rolled a 4, well, that's going to be 0 damage. I would still then get plus 2 damage, which would affect the Rogel Dorn. So the Rogel Dorn would take 2 damage in that situation. However, if it's a las cannon, it's d6 plus 3, it would be 0. Work through that in your head a few times, as however you need to. If there is a damage modifier, that is applied after the blanking. If there's not, then it is what it is. Okay. Okay, so this is for move and scoot abilities. Okay. The Necron Auto Divinator enhancement activates whenever your opponent gains a CP as a result of an ability. Does, however, this apply when an opponent gains CP from Imperial Knights or, say, Votann? The answer is no. And it also does not apply when you get it by discarding a card. So think of it this way: for you, like Inquisitor Cotiez or anyone who has the ability to generate CP when someone else generates a CP, the only time you actually get to do that is if your opponent has an ability that gains them a CP, and it doesn't have a caveat that says this ignores all other abilities. So the Imperial Knights bonus CP for killing a Warlord and Ruthless Efficiency from the Votann, the rules specify that gaining those CP are outside of any other rules in the entire game. So just don't even think of those as counting as part of the game, and then you'll be okay. And discarding a card isn't an ability; that's just part of the game. All right. Second question: how does the interaction between movement characteristics and rules that provide a move distance work? All right. This is very simple. Okay. This is the whole controversy at the WCW between John Lennon and Manny. Which, by the way, guys, neither of them did anything wrong. Chill out. It was just a misunderstanding. But here's the way it goes. Let's say I'm using squad tactics and I get to move d6 inches and I roll a 6. Well, my aggressors can only ever move 5, so they only get to move 5. You can only move up to a maximum of your movement. Same thing with Eldar Phantasm. When you roll, when you're doing your Wraith Guard and the Wraith Guard are using Phantasm, they can only move 6, even though Phantasm allows you to move up to 7. You can only move your move characteristic. And this also includes move characteristic modifiers. So let's say those Wraith Guard were -2 to move and use Phantasm on them. They can only move 4 inches. Okay? That's basically the way it works. Okay, cool. The rest of it was just repeats. Repeats, this is the reserve question. It's a repeat. Okay, all right. This is a really good one for everyone to understand. This is one that people sometimes get upset with, but it's the way the game works. When do you control an objective at the beginning of the game? people misunderstand this all the time. You control an objective after the end of the first command phase. So if you're a army, such as orcs, for example, and everyone knows I'm an orc player, I love my orcs, and I have Gretchen on an objective. If I control that objective at the start of the command phase, then I get to get a new CP on a roll of a 4-up. If I go first, I cannot make that roll because I haven't controlled the objective marker yet. It's the same rationale for why you can't cleanse on a spawned objective in the ritual, because you have to actually have a time to control that objective marker. Same reason why you can't do a Scorched Earth in like round 5. Or burn an objective in round 5 because you've never had a time to actually be on that objective. Well, actually, I guess that's a little different. I just confused everyone. Ignore that nonsense I just said. But no, if you go first and your ability requires you to own the objective, then you don't own it at the start of the first command phase. Okay, cool. If you go second, you do. Question: do things like Doom Bolt, Thousand Suns Index count as psychic attacks? Yes, they do. If you have a field of pain against psychic attacks, you have a field of pain against Doom Bolt. That is fantastic. All right. Can unit be considered to be eligible to shoot whilst in reserves and therefore begin an action? The answer is no. You're not on the table. You can't do an action. Stop trying to metagame. Stop being a rule lawyer, you jerks. Some abilities. Now, this is very fascinating and very unique for LVO. If you're a Chaos Knight player, kind of sorry, guys. This kind of hurts. If you're a person who's playing Tyranids and you're trying to make me take 13 battle shocks in a single phase, sorry, buddy, it's not going to work out. Okay. Some abilities require enemy units that are below their starting strength to take a battle shock test in the battle shock step of the command phase. If such unit is also below half strength, how many battle shock tests will the unit take in total? The answer is 1 test. So you don't have to take 2, 3, 7,000 tests. It's 1 test. You take 1 battle shock test. Can you slow roll to get rid of abilities that happen with leading a unit? No, you cannot. If you have a unit of knobs and there's a war boss leading them that makes them all -1 to wound, you cannot precision the war boss dead to get rid of the -1 to wound effect. Now you can precision the war boss dead and then attack with another unit, and then the ability would be gone. But all your attacks happen at the exact same time, so you can't precision out in the same activation to get rid of a leader ability like that. Doesn't work. Okay. Can you bring a model back via the Apothecary Narthesium, for example, if they are in reserves? The answer is no. Now, there is one caveat to this. There is a ability in, I believe it's Hypercrypt. And Eddie, if you're in chat, would you mind typing down the name of the stratagem for me? It is a Hypercrypt stratagem that very specifically says you can activate reanimation protocols in reserves. But if it doesn't specifically say that you can do it in reserves, you can't, okay? All right, can the same unit be affected by the same stratagem twice? For example, Guard's Field of Fire strat. The answer is yes. Ooh, that's fascinating. Do units or transports that are under half strength in the command phase need to take battle shock tests at any time if they're inside the transport? The answer is no. You only take battle shocks when you're on the field. Once a game ability is reset with that unit is respawned as a new unit? The answer is no, they do not respawn, only if they have not been used. This is different than once per use war gear, not the same thing. Once per use war gear does respawn, once per use abilities do not. Can mortals that occur from things that are not attacks be split up between different models in a unit? No, absolutely not. You can never split wounds. Not unless it's like shooting and someone like does a precision shot against a character. That's the only situation I can really think of where you can split wounds. Some abilities allow a unit. Yeah, we already talked about that. Oh, this is very, very nice. If you guys are playing Tau, you need to understand this. Stop trying to be a rules lawyer. If a unit that contains a character, monster, or vehicle model fails several hazardous tests at the same time, how are the effects of those failed tests applied? For each failed hazardous test, the unit's controlling player selects one model in the unit equipped with hazardous weapon. That model will suffer the relevant effects of the failed test, whether it's destroyed or takes 3 wounds, until it's destroyed, at which point that player selects another model. So what this means is that you can't take a Tau Crisis unit, take one hazardous test on your Cold Star, and then another on a Crisis suit, and then another on the Cold Star, and another on you can't do that. It applies to a model until the model dies, and then you move on. Stop trying to metagame. All right, please. Okay, that's the one we talked about with the Melta, so that's already been answered. We're actually kind of closing in. I'll go through some of the faction-specific ones, but those are real fast. They take almost no time. Nope, we've already talked about that. Already talked about that. Something that was brought into question. Okay, nope. This is basically, they're just asking about wobbly model syndrome when you're standing inside of a wall. Gentlemen, Grotzen gets, ladies, if you exist. By the way, I was looking at my channel's demographics. I have 2 subscribers who are girls. It's pretty darn exciting. It is my wife and it is my sister-in-law, but still, it's pretty exciting. um, all right. Yeah, so this question is just about wobbly models going and standing inside of ruins. We've already talked about that. I showed you guys on TTS how it works. If you have more questions about that, the way that works, then make sure you just hop on the Discord. As a matter of fact, what I'll do is as soon as I'm done here, guys, I'm just going to hop into the Discord and I'll do a quick class on that to make sure everyone understands that, okay? So if you just hop over there right after this video is done, and we'll just do a quick like little 5-10 minute session to make sure everyone understands. General aircraft transport, night scythe in particular. This transport cannot start on the board. On the turn it comes in from reserves. Can the model inside it disembark? The answer is yes. There are specific abilities for that one, for the night scythe in particular. This is once again the same question about standing inside walls. That's 122, 123. Oh, this is actually good. For missions that require you to hold no man's land objectives, sites of power, the ritual, etc., does enemy deployment zone objective count as no man's land? No, it doesn't. It also doesn't count for extend battle lines, which I found out in a game that I may have not won yesterday. If you're playing against Votan and you get really frustrated because your opponent tells you that he can put a judgment token on a unit that's in a transport, stop being frustrated. He can do it. The rule says select a unit in your enemy's army. It has nothing to do with being on the battlefield. So yes, they can select embarked units for ruthless efficiency. Can units with deep strike? Yes, yes, yes. We are talking. All right. So actually, this is a little bit different. Can units with deep strike that start the game in reserves on T1 use their deep strike ability? No, per match play rules. That was a silly question. Okay, and that is essentially everything. Yeah, that was all. That was it, man. That was the general. That was the general. Let me just check on a chat here for a few things. So Donald Cowie has a question. He wants to know, is this FAQ blessed by GW, seeing GW doing a preview at LVO? Honestly, man, doesn't matter because GW's FAQs are king, and they'll put out the FAQs. So whenever you're playing a game, here's what I recommend, guys. Choose the rule set you like. I play WTC. That is what I mainly play. Now, I don't always play WTC. Sometimes I do play standard GW. But there are FAQs that are needed, which is why just pure GW rules don't really work that well. That's why we need these FAQ booths. Just always check the FAQs for the event that you're going to. A lot of people thought the WCW was blessed by GW. It was not. That was for one tournament, and then everyone freaked out, and they thought that was the new rules of the game. It was not. The FAQ is for tournaments specifically, okay? Patrick wants to know if there's any news on when the balanced data slate arrives. Bro, I am searching the interwebs. It's going to be this week or next week. Sadly, we just don't know. I want to know, but we don't. All right, so I'm going to take maybe 5 minutes, and I'm just going to run through all the faction-specific FAQs. There's not much, and then we'll just we'll be done with it all. All right, for the Telemon Dreadnought. Oh my gosh, guys, I would love to bring a Telemon. It needs new. It's just I have no idea how to make that thing work right now. It's just not good. All right, but if I give him 2 melee weapons, which I have the option of, and they are identical, does it give me double the attacks? The answer is no. So just don't do it. And everything else has already been talked. Oh, this is actually interesting. So can Inquisitors lead Custodian Sagittarium Guard? They're saying no, they cannot, which is against rules as written. But you know what? That is their ruling. So that's what they're doing for LVO. Adeptus Mechanicus has no rulings. Holy crap! Eldari have quite a few. Okay. Aldar can do whatever the heck they want. They don't don't even apply to them, so don't even worry about that. Does Lord Leontis' ability to gain a CP in your command phase count as the 1 CP you gain per battle round, or is it an exception? It counts as your 1 CP. Can Creed use her ability to allow a unit to come back from the dead? No. Do Astra Militarum units get lethal in Overwatch? The answer is no. You do not get lethal in Overwatch. And that's basically it. Black Templars. Can you use Chaplain Grimaldus's prayers while in strat reserves? The answer is yes, you may. Blood Angels, Chaos Knights. No, you only ever take 1 battle shock test, not 2. honestly, all these are basically pretty easy. You guys can probably go through these on your own if you are looking interested. I'm just going to take a look at the orcs because that's who I am. Okay, guys, this is one thing that all right, Gazcool sucks right now. It frustrates me, but he does. But we don't need to make him suck even more. So Makari counts as a separate model from Gazcool, which means Gaz and Makari cannot go in a battle wagon because Makari also has the Gaz keyword, and Gaz takes up 18 slots, which means Gaz and Makari count as 36 slots in a battle wagon. That's frustrating to me. That's a stupid ruling. uh, this is actually one very interesting ruling that they've done here. I don't really agree with it, but it's pretty cool. If you take a Knob with Wall Banner to LVO, the Knob with Wall Banner will get to benefit from Makari's Aura of Lethal Hits twice per game. Not that I would ever take Gaz right now. He's awful in the current iteration. And that's basically it, guys. There's a few other tiny things in there, but like that's more or less it. This is LVO, guys. I'm super excited. Overall, I think this rule set is freaking awesome, and it's going to lead to a really, really good experience for people. If you guys haven't seen all of the rules, they've got their tournament pack out. It's somewhere around on the interwebs. Just a quick housekeeping right now. If you guys are interested in the Happy Crumpin' Wargaming tournament, that is going to be happening about 3 to 4 days after the data slate drops. The reason why it's happening 3 to 4 days after the data slate drops is because I want everyone to have an opportunity to kind of analyze the data slate, watch my videos, like and subscribe. But actually, it's going to be really interesting because the way the tournament is structured is it's going to be 5 weeks. So it's all on TTS. And every single week, you're going to be allowed to change your list. What we want you to do is we want you to get used to the new meta. We want you to try out new things. You will not be able to list Taylor. Don't worry about that because you won't find out your opponent for the next week until after you've submitted your new list. You also do not have to change your list every week. You can keep the same list. That's totally fine. The point of the tournament is to make sure that you can get all the practice that you need in a competitive and friendly environment to make sure that you're ready for the next several months of the meta. And so this Happy Crumpin' Wargaming tournament is going to be the way to do it. It does not cost money. It is free as long as you are a member. You can be a YouTube member or you can be a coffee member. Either way is totally fine and it totally works. So sign on up. We will be launching 3 to 4 days after that slate. I will make announcements in the Discord. We will mainly be using the WTC rules. I might have a little bit of a specific FAQ, and we'll go through the way it works. You will get paired up against one different opponent every single week. It'll be somewhere across the world. You too have the ability to negotiate when you play your game. I know some people, you might have kids, and it might be hard to schedule a game once a week. No problem. Just get up with your opponent, see if you guys can break it up into 2 hour-and-a-half long sessions instead of like 1 3-hour session, right? It doesn't bother me how you get your games done. If there are any issues within your games and you need a TO, you just save the picture of it on TTS, which is really convenient. And then myself or Shetel or any of our other admins or TOs can come in and we can make our rulings on it. It's going to be an awesome experience for you guys to get your feet wet with competitive 40K and to make sure that you understand like how the new meta is developing. So I really encourage everyone to jump on in there. And honestly, it's a great Discord to be a part of also. So anyway, guys, with that, I'm going to actually go ahead and close it out for today. Hopefully you all understood the big changes. LVO did some really cool things by adopting a lot of the WTC ruling, by ignoring some of the WCW ruling. I'm actually a huge, huge fan of it all. So with that, I'm going to take it off. I'm going to head over to the Discord right now. I'm going to do a quick session to make sure everyone understands how to do it all. And I appreciate all of you, and I hope you have an amazing freaking evening. And I'll see you again later this week, I believe, because I'm going to do a wish list for the data slate.